Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build GTM with the mayor himself, Rob Jones, who's been heads down. It's been a little bit since our last episode. Got a lot of stuff going on, launching a lot of stuff, doing events, doing new products, and we're gonna get into that. But before we do that,
Before we do that, I'm going to tell you that the description of this live with you almost sent me into an anxiety attack and tailspin. So I don't know if that was intended to spark joy or fear or just be funny, but you accomplished all of them. Like, pressure is a privilege. I do feel some. I feel both. Feel privileged. I think you worded it as like, join us today as Rob Jones highlights every RevOps professional's worst nightmare of executing an event, launching a product, and doing everything else all at the same time. What will he break down live on camera in front of an audience? Find out at 12. So yeah, I'm here. I'm still heads down. This could be like a therapy or idea session for both, but yeah, all that's true. And I don't know how I feel about your description yet, Chris.
well, one of the best ways to handle this is definitely to distract from the issue at hand.
I agree with that.
And you made this post today, which you brought up as feeling like it's gold and it's not performing as such, right? And it very likely is gold. And I was interested when you brought it up because this, for me, highlights the issue that we are all dealing with right now and that we've talked before on the show. Because I saw this, and rightfully so. Rob's like, it's right up your alley. Like, why the hell haven't you engaged yet, man? And I literally, like an hour ago, it was on my phone. The hook, the spot that I saw, the AI native, right? I like using that term, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to chime in. I'm going to leave a comment talking about how I use the word AI native. And then a squirrel. And then the post is gone, right? Until you bring it up to me, like verbally, which is the only way I'm coming back to that post, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, no matter how good this is, you cannot control my consumption in that moment, right? Things are going to happen. And well, it certainly looks spicy. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. Meanwhile, I watched the whole video earlier that you posted yesterday about, one of the products the product that you're trying to launch, right? And that's where all that gets lost in translation, but that's what happens showing up every day. People aren't going to watch or consume everything, but when you're there every day, there will be a non-zero amount of consumption. And if it's good stuff and it's entertaining stuff, that means a non-zero amount of trust is being built, right? Versus we don't show up for like a month. And if you weren't posting also, people would be like, where's Rob Jones? What happened?
Yeah, right? What happened to Rob?
Nobody's asking that, though. I can tell you that.
Well, they should be, because I might crawl into a corner and hide for a lot of this. Yeah, I mean, two other things I think are kind of the point here. In trying to prove my point of, like, Chris, you were one of the first people I thought about when I posted this, when I was editing, revising, building this. I thought it was pretty funny. Like, the Scripps National Spelling Bee version. Can I have an alternate pronunciation? What's the language of origin? So I thought about that as I was going through that to just know how bad it flopped, right? Somebody liked a post that I had from, I want to say, like mid-February, late February, which was just beyond bizarre. Don't know how that happened, but that's cool. And then I liked something that I thought, I guess, had happened recently, but going back to check the timestamp was from like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when it was posted. I thought it was breaking news. It read like it was important. Not even happening. Like, it's not current at all. So I know a lot. That's almost how people should approach content in everything is like optimized for the experience, optimized for the content itself, not necessarily for the distribution mechanism. Because if it's of any merit, right, it should perform. Like that's what you can control. I think you kind of mentioned that. Like you can't control my consumption or my attention span. Squirrel. You can't control that, but you can control putting effort into, you know, creating something that's of a respectable quality or something that you would like. So that's what I've tried to do, and I'm over it. You know, if we're getting into segments from my favorite show, I'm over it. It's one of them. I'm over trying to beat the algorithm or understand it at all at this point.
Which means the only thing you can control is showing up every day. Because quality is in the eye of the beholder, and you could definitely miss out on showing up every day to try and get that perfect post out, that perfect video up. And again, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But when you show up every day right now, like there's clear evidence to show that, you know, when you're bringing value, like that foundation builds and the data builds and the trust builds and, you know, things happen for you. Is that fair?
Yes, 100%. Even in the way of weirdly, you know, contact us forms that reference me by name, which is a lot of things, flattering, worrisome. Which video of mine made you want to reach out? Because then I'll explore, you know, how much of it could be pretty serious. It could be not real. It could be trying to pitch me, you know, counseling or therapy. But yeah, there are points of that we talk about this a lot, is like the hardest. Got an event coming up, right? It could be I think it's going to be great, to be very candid, where I'm very excited. The speaker lineup is absolutely mind-boggling how we got these people here. The guest list, I think we're either sold out now or very, very close to it. All of that is planned. It's getting, you know, the final dots, you know, cross your T's, dots your I's on that. But even if it's the best thing anybody's ever been to, there's no way for us to dictate their timeline or their consumption, if you will. And so optimizing instead for the experience of the event is really what you can control. And that's been our approach. It kind of even goes on theme with, you know, human connection and authenticity. How do you scale while remaining human and authentic in an age of AI, which is useful, but it shouldn't be the only thing. We talk about human in the loop. You and Nico and George talk about AI and how to leverage it effectively all the time. But you still, especially for an event, and I think the hospitality industry being there, I think even treating people instead of saying, you know, attendees as guests, that type of language, that type of approach, very servant's heart oriented as an RP value, is useful. And that helps to optimize for the experience. That way, I mean, this is my whole thing. I don't have to be a top mind to be top of mind. So when they think about the experience and come back to it and get content, I hope that RP and us having put it on and hosted it and kind of stepped back to allow for that experience rather than pitching or rather than doing a lot of that, you know, old school kind of weird B2B event traditional stuff that both you and I are kind of, you know, not.
That's exactly right. And that's where I was going. Like, because this is where, like, we changed the name of the show from community content to GTM for this very purpose. Like, you're able to optimize both the event itself and the experience and, you know, the product and how it gets delivered in a way that if you hadn't been showing up every day and you didn't have relationships with all these, you know, rock stars that you talk about, it's like people will try to, knowing that, like, any good marketer knows that the experience is what people pay for and what people remember, but they will not have done that. Like, their organization will not have done that because it's not wrapped in a go-to-market strategy for the business, right? And when you understand how it all syncs together, now the event, like, can be on a different level in a dramatically shorter time period and everything that's happened before it, with people that are like excited to join. And like, I just can't help but like, if you're in a business and you're on either side of this, like Rob is under a lot of pressure and that's why the post resonated with him. But most of that is self-induced, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's because you're at this level that's just like, okay, we got to perform. And most people will not even get there, but they'll feel the same amount of pressure to get similar results. And they're not going to get those results anymore, right? Because it's just, you cannot get to that level of experience if you've got to, do things like people ask about leads to participate, all this transactional relationship that happens just to get you to show up and talk. Like when you gotta throw a carrot, use carrots and sticks like constantly to get people involved on either side.
Yeah.
Which is the traditional approach. Like, what's in it for me? Everybody's asking. Like, we're just seeing that not work. And, like I would imagine it's much easier for you to deliver on an experience like that, just because you're so active. You've done the work. Like, you do the work every day, not just when it's event time, right? Not when it's just product time.
I'm going to drop a bunch of quotes here from people that inspire me. Brendan Tollison, if you're watching, here's one. There's freedom in a framework. So the event and all of the agendas built out, schedules built out. I have a plan. I have, interestingly enough, a bunch of cue cards. So for like interviews and talking to people, I have a bunch of really good ideas for that. That's the framework, right? So you can prepare for that. Can I prepare for people being averse to being on content with some dude wearing a suit and a mustache? I mean, yeah, I can actually. And so I'm anticipating that. But that's where the preparation comes in. I've listened to a lot of sports, this, but like failing to prepare is preparing to fail, or however that goes. So yeah, there's a lot of prep done, but you have to allow for some flexibility. There's a rooftop at ATV. What if it rains? Is that going to cause more pressure? Possibly. But third quote, this is like rapid quote section. Pressure is a privilege. Like, not everybody gets to host this type of event or have amazing sponsors. HubSpot, QuotaPath, Zuper, Supered, PandaDoc, Founders Legal, like Octave, Outbound. Nope, that's a privilege. Yeah, it's pressure, but not having it would be a lot worse, right? And so there's all of that. To circle back to what you just said, and here, I know we both love acronyms, and I know you love value first and like trying to rethink stuff. We also are both massive fanboys of George B. Thomas, who's one of the, by the way, a little aside here, talking to his clone last week was one of the craziest experiences of my entire life. But you can't go, like, I think I was talking to Bolian or someone the other day, and he was talking about go-to-market and how it's become cliche and overused. And he said something that was weird. It was almost a multiple, but you can't go to market without having gone to customers. So there's this like building block of going to the customer. If you solve for that and you optimize for going to the customers, if you get enough customers, you know what that's called? A market.
Yeah.
And so there's this like I like all the acronyms, but there's this like go to mind share concept that's the throughput between a larger market or subsets of a market and the individuals, customers that make up those segments. It could be in any example there. What do you think about?
I mean, I completely agree. And that's how I try to explain go-to-market usually. It's like, imagine a market, like a real market, like that you just went to, and now you're in the middle of the market. Like, who the hell are you? Like, what are you doing when you're in there? Like, how are you talking to people? Like, it's not like outside, like, oh, I'm going to send sales messages up, like, and just hit them from outside. And like, no, like you're going to, like you're in it. You go to the market, right? You can't transact unless you're inside the market. So yes. I mean, I heard that from Crispy a couple weeks ago, like the go to customer idea. Yeah. And I love it. And it's unfortunate that we have to like try to iterate on these words that make sense, until it just gets bastardized by people just applying it to everything, like GTM engineering. Like, oh man, like what are we engineering? Like, are we like trying to build a building around the market and then like pathways? Like, no, just go there.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
I get the engineering word. We've used it. I get that, but let's go back to the market example for a second. If you had an idea for a product or service or a way to make money, right? A way to make revenue, and you go into a market, how are you going to know if it's going to be successful without talking to the people that are buying? You're like, why are you buying this? What if there was another option? Or talking to the people that aren't buying? Nothing working. What are you doing here? Right. And being involved in, as you said, actually in the market, present, and having conversations. Imagine you do that. And it's like a real market. Like in my head, I'm picturing Aladdin. So just, for a visual, you're in the market and you're seeing all this stuff and you recognize, ma'am, what are those, papayas? Cool. All right, what are these? Whatever. How are you going to carry these? And you realize no one is offering like a transport or a bag or like a carrying system. That's an insight from being in the market that you could then capitalize on. And so you could either bring the same stuff, like again, fruits, vegetables, whatever, and be like, with ours, you get a free bag. Isn't that a better experience for the people that are either having to juggle all the crap while they're leaving the market, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's my mindset. And so, the DIY product, I've been working pretty closely with the product owner as the go-to-market owner. My job isn't to build the product. It's to destroy the product, to figure out what would make someone not understand this. Where are the areas where there's friction present? Where are the areas of lack of clarity? Where are the areas people may not understand or see value? If there is value here and it's not clear or apparent, how do we either change or tweak or iterate, or just convey a message, convey a message that's more clear and can spark interest, right? So that's been a super interesting experience, having to test, having to work through stuff. And the feedback isn't on, I don't agree with this playbook. It's, I can't open this. Am I like, this video's too small? I don't understand it at all. This wording is weird. This isn't clear. This isn't a good flow. And so we do have that now. It's out, the HubSpot DIY for marketing and sales. And my job has been it's the funnest job, bull in a china shop. Break everything if you can, figure out what, share your opinion as somebody that would purchase it, that would need help, that would need literally like color by numbers built into the product. But yeah, to me, that's an example of going to customer myself. Let me put myself in the shoes of somebody that's going to end up using this and act as a tester for social proof. It's still a little too close, because I'm an employee, work here, have definitely seen it and used it a bunch of times. But is that how you should do it? I mean, I guess I'm asking your feedback for what would you do if you were building something?
Oh man.
Do we have enough time? I mean, you answered that as if like, how much time you got, Rob?
No, like you're not gonna like the answer. That's the problem.
Oh, okay.
Because for some reason, and I guess this is what happens when you're active in the market and trying to educate on the product that everybody's building around and trying to figure out how to make work better. But almost every day at this point, somebody's like, hey, I'm building this product. I think I've got a niche here.
You did mention this.
Right. And like, that's where these are usually individuals asking me that. So I'm sure I'll say that big partner agencies definitely need to figure this out.
Did I look over the right shoulder? Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's all right. 50-50 shot. You need to figure out how to bridge this gap, because HubSpot is pulling back on how much support you get out of the box. AI tools are showing up, right? So you definitely need to figure out, because like the traditional onboarding, traditional audits, traditional profitable products like that, productized services like that, are becoming less and less viable. So that gap does have to be figured out. But for me, anybody building a product like risks like HubSpot building it themselves.
Yeah.
You know, the LLMs building it, the Googles of the world building it, right? And specifically what I'm seeing with MCP is that gives everybody the ability to build their own tool set.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but in any of these examples, it still comes down to the user, like deciding to use it. Right. And in the situation you described right before we went live, like HubSpot's a great example of the ability to have tutorials, you know, available. And if you want it, you can go through it. If you don't, you can click the button to skip it. I guarantee most of the skips are from people that probably need the tutorial. Right?
Yep.
So like the education behind all this and, you know, the challenge of needing to create content in order to educate at a speed of market that's just unreal between, at least in our ecosystem, HubSpot and AI going back and forth, like just bang, bang, bang every single day, right? So it seems a very challenging task to bring a technology-based product to market right now. I do think enablement, consulting, coaching, like that's where it needs to be. But I think it's super challenging to figure out, like, you know, especially when you're building alongside HubSpot. You know, as an example, and
I'll give you a spoiler because I agree with everything you've said. So like, that is what it is. It is. I would even amend my statement, and I think you would agree. Like, you don't really, whether you say build or launch, you're going to have to update it rapidly with HubSpot. So it's not just building it and waiting 2 or 3 months and then figuring out how that's not going to work. It's pretty constant, considering the HubSpot context of it all, right? I also agree with like, they could build something like that, like maybe Breeze evolves into that, right? But the product itself is a like async coaching expertise enablement that's kind of it's not done for you, so it's not like a partner or like white glove experience, but it allows you to train at your own speed, at your own expertise level, whether it's the first time you've ever seen it, it fits for those people, or whether you're a pro like you, like it. You may not need the damn thing. That's fine. Like that's not you. It's particularly aren't the audience, but it is more in the realm of like coaching, enablement, expertise, walkthroughs to train. It's just not done. Like you could say this is higher margin or lower bandwidth or like more efficient because all the personnel that are involved in client, you know, partner work now, they're not needed for this. It would be more of like ad hoc or asynchronous back and forth. And if that, I guess to your point, doesn't solve the need for the customer, then we need to rebuild and figure out how the product is being delivered and experienced to them. But that is the thought. Everything else that you said, I agree with.
Right. No, I think that's the right way to look at it. And
it would almost be, I think what you're trying to say is like, I'm going to build an LLM. Like, good luck, buddy. Like, you know how far behind you are in speed, money, funding, all that. Like, it's fool's errand. It's just not.
Also, like, here's the challenge, because you have people like me, Nico, and George, who don't make any like bones about what we're trying to do and put this tooling in the hands of users. It's like we're all racing to try and solve for the users when the what is it called? Like the ignition, like the ignition barrier, like is so high, like for them. Like by the time they get educated to be like, okay, I see how that works now. Yes, I can use it myself. Like, do they have MCP in their hands and they're just using Claude to set up everything? Like that's last week. It was so eye-opening when we unboxed MCP. Like the week before, I had unboxed Tango AI, like agent. And that was mind blowing. But then the next week, it's immediately called into question, at least at this lower level. Like that's definitely an enterprise play, and like they're having a lot of success. And I think it's really great for solving for like a CRM admin adoption gap that has existed forever, right? But when MCP comes out a week later, and literally you can teach people how to connect it to their HubSpot, and they can have conversations with, oh, I want this to happen in my new HubSpot, right? Like I'm starting to, and we had a good conversation with Willem Roos, like, let's build onboarding.
Yep.
Like, does onboarding, how do you decide? Is it going to include a Claude instance now, right? To go with it so that people can do that. But also HubSpot's going to learn a lot from MCP usage. And as they rebuild Copilot, Breeze, like I expect by inbound, they will have a lot of this stuff in platform, right? But even there, will people move off of the LLMs to go into HubSpot and do it? There's just so many components that drive uncertainty right now. So I think products in most cases have to be seen, at least when they're not the big players, because that's where a lot of people come, like, hey, I've got this app idea. I think anybody that's not somebody like Stuart Balcom that already has a huge audience gets laser focused on like, okay, company insights going away, like this is Account Scout, like he was at it every day, and that was his only focus, right? That's what it takes right now, I think, to make an app like that's very niche to work. But so for everybody else, it's like it's got to be a lead generator or a learning like activity for the business. I don't know how you can bank on like sustainable levels of profitability beyond like 3 to 6 months, right? And because of that, that's where like the go-to-market changes a little bit as we talk about content. Like, so the video that's you entertaining, like, and doing the dance and song in front of the product in the background, that is more evergreen than the how-to stuff that's because the product's got to change like constantly, right? So it doesn't mean you're not doing content, you're just sitting back. It's just you got to change the way that you do the content. I know for you, like you're already doing like the entertaining content, you understand the value, but does that come to mind when you're like, oh, did this video, but now there's some stuff that needs to be redone because HubSpot changed and we changed, and like, how are you thinking about that?
It's the thing that I think about the most, to be honest, is like how evergreen can some of this be? Not just for DIY. I think there's, to your point, elements of humor and top of funnelness to just gain awareness, to let people kind of make their own decisions and go explore it and increase visibility that this exists. That's step one, right? If people don't know it exists or that there's this type of option, nothing else matters. And there will be no revisions to content or new videos needed because they, whatever. But yeah, it's not just for that. It's for it's kind of the question of like, you would think something that's traditionally not evergreen, like southbound promotion or whatever, that's once a year, like we'll do that again next year, but it's for every deadgum thing, right? Like think about all the first videos I made, 2 years ago that were introducing this new hub or HubSpot. Like here's the back and forth. I would have to go back and update every single one of those because almost all of that has changed. So the speed, that's kind of why we're here. The speed of content, the speed of creativity, and the speed of really being able to translate and explain value to people that are looking for it is what you have to iterate on. And it's just a constant, it's a content flywheel. Here's new information coming in. Here's a thought of like how to translate value to people and position it in the right way, aside from all the building, like of the product or service or whatever it is. But that flywheel for me turns incredibly quickly sometimes, and then just gets stuck at other times. Because I am not, I think anybody, we have guesses and whatnot of like what they're gonna do at inbound, but anticipating it and getting it wrong is also a misstep. It's not truthful. It's not like you could say right now, like MCP has now solved for all of this. There's no more onboarding needed at all. And you would be close, but you'd be wrong. Like that's not true. It's close. Maybe it's on the precipice. Maybe a voice activated CRM that's like, no click or zero touch is close, but you can't come out now and say that, or else you destroy your credibility. Maybe you could, I don't know. I mean, like that's kind of a different conversation, but I think that's where you were going. There's two extremes. One is to be slow and a laggard and not adapt and create new stuff to freshen. That's what they do with the product. You have to treat your content the same way as a product. So it needs updates. It needs new stuff to go with it. It needs new dialogue, and it needs to be accurate of what people are actually getting. At the same token, you could just predict what the results and announcements and features are going to be at inbound and go ahead and put a bunch of stuff out now and be completely wrong or way too early. And then people are wanting something that you cannot give them, which is also not good. It's definitely a balance.
Right. And this could be me justifying. So just fair warning there. But it feels like if it was like an announcement and like I'm on high, like this will happen, and then you don't hear anything until inbound, and you're like, what the hell, Chris? Like I could see that being true. But when it's like just news sharing and this is what I think every day, right? And so it creates this evolution of thought, like where since it's off the cuff and authentic, you can be a little bit outside the lines and like have a commentary, have a take, but then be totally, justified in changing the take because it's based on news and stuff actually happening, right? That's where I think it's definitely very hard to do things like that if you're not like talking to people every day and paying attention to updates every day. And even then knowing and giving yourself permission to not know exactly where the platform is going. I mean, the video marketing platform that I unboxed last week completely took me by surprise. Like, and I love that part of HubSpot. And I told Ankur, I was like, I don't know how you guys did that. Yeah. We were announcing video updates all the time, and then just out of nowhere, editing platform inside of HubSpot. Like, so it definitely still happens, and that's where I
was looking for a quote to encapsulate this, and I heard it on a sports show, but it's from an economist, John Maynard Keynes, right? And this is getting into like the media, all the stuff you've talked about, kind of the reason we're here. And I had to look it up because I forgot exactly what it was. But when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir? Right? Like, there's some documentation. You said takes. You're kind of approaching it like news, which is, wink, wink. But that's what you're approaching it as. That's how it should be approached. I mean, that's what they do. They have newsletters, for God's sakes, right? So like you can, what is it, pontificate or anticipate or predict, prophesize like the changes. And if anything changes that leads them to then change their approach or roadmap or speed it up or slow it down or then obviously things have changed and you can now have a new opinion or a new prediction or a new, like, this is what they need to do. But if you're not constantly doing that in a way that's documented at least or visible, like I think of it almost like an almanac, like Ben Franklin's almanac of like, here's what the weather is going to be. Here's the forecast for all this stuff. He was pretty good at it, but I'm sure he did a lot of research and updated it all the time. So that type of stuff, if you're taking a media-esque approach to reporting on this, which is value add, it's education, then it's malpractice, candidly, to not update or change or be willing to admit when you're wrong, or MCP will never be. I'm sure people said that 2 years. I mean, think about how shrunken the time domains for change have become in the like ADHD, 2020s. We have no attention spans. 10 years ago, I'm sure you and everybody else was saying, that'd be great, but pipe, it's here
we
now.
weren't even thinking about it, honestly. Like vibe coding as a phrase was coined in February
Is insane,
of
right?
this year.
And now
Like-
you have Dharmesh that I've seen him use that term and do that multiple times in posts.
MCP didn't exist prior to last year. Like,
I had
like, when
GPT explain MCP, by the way, and I'll see. I asked it to do two things: explain MCP to me like I'm 6, and then it was a weird description, and then I ask it just like pretend I'm an adult that doesn't know anything about tech at all, which is closer than a child. But for anybody listening or not listening to this, if you're not sure what it is, Chris can tell you. But
here's what
I'd rather you affirm this metaphor, right? Imagine you're working with a really smart assistant, like a super-powered version of Alexa or Siri, but this one can hold a conversation, help with writing, summarize documents, answer complex questions, and more. But here's the catch. This assistant has no memory of who you are, what you're working on, or what you talked about yesterday, unless you tell it every single time. That's where MCP comes in. MCP, Model Context Protocol, is basically the set of rules and tools that help this assistant remember what's relevant to your conversation, task, or project. How close is that?
It's good. I think I'm starting to simplify it. My customized platform is what it stands for, in my opinion, as far as functionality and output. Like we literally can build our own tool sets to connect to whatever the MCP is allowing us to connect to. Like it's what SaaS has never been able to accomplish through iPasses and integrations and like all this unnecessary complexity. They've never been able to get rid of it. And whole industries have been built on top of it. And Model Context Protocol is all about standardizing that, right?
What is that analogous to as another tech innovation? In terms of like impact or novelty, like when I don't know as much as you, obviously you're the expert here, but to me, it's almost like the advent of Wi-Fi, right? Like you can now you don't have to now be plugged in. You don't have to be in one spot. You now have freedom to roam or have geo, and you still get like internet signal in different places without connectivity. I know that it's not the same thing, but as far as like economic and global and access impact, is that kind of the parallel that I need to be thinking of it as? Or what would a better one be? Because I mean, you're saying this has never, ever been done before. Entire industries are built on like unnecessary complexity of connecting things and allowing them to talk. What is that big that would, be kind of like a milestone or a comparison?
Well, I think it's hard to take it outside of SaaS. And when I asked Sajal, the product manager, if anything like this, like why has there been such a challenge of standardization? And she said REST API as an example, like everybody using the API protocols is the closest thing to standardization. But that's where when all the systems are labeled differently and everybody's using different terminology as a way to label fields and internal naming and all this stuff, like that was just a way to access. But then if there wasn't somebody doing the work to like create common language, like literally that's half my job sometimes on coaching calls. It's like, do you understand that you guys are both talking about the same thing right now? And we just need to change this word and now there's no problem. Like it happens all the time.
So it's more like a Rosetta Stone for platforms or for tools.
Yeah. Like but even there, that's like
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
What do I do with that? Like, am I going to go learn a bunch of languages? Like, probably not. That's why I think it needs to be delivered as like when I connect Claude to HubSpot now, I can do a lot of stuff in HubSpot conversationally with Claude. And then I can easily redo it. Like, I think one of the biggest deals that people are sleeping on with MCP is there's so much sunk cost that gets in the way of progress. Like, oh, we already built it and we're out of hours. But we all know that it's not going to work, or it's not going to work out. But now it's going to cost us much. So I guess we have to live with it. Right. And
That's where my head goes.
Nico and I are going to be live tomorrow again, talking about the new tech stack, or tech stack reimagined is what we called it last week. Where it's just, imagine if you just have Claude, Google, and HubSpot, and that's your tech stack. And MCP allows you to build all the tooling, right? But I want to get back to something that you said about like people wanting, looking for the value, right? I think the big question that nobody's really solved is how to understand the value that end users are looking for. And like, so when you said, I am not the target market, or I'm not the target audience, and then yesterday I'm in person with a client and the project is taking longer than expected, but they like it in terms of it's going at the speed that they're comfortable with. But it's taking 6 weeks for them to start engaging with HubSpot at all, right? And that's through us having a lot of conversations. And so what if I had access to DIY as a coach and consultant, and that made that process go faster or easier?
I mean, that's what I want to position it as legitimately, right? Is, yeah, I mean, that was because more tongue in cheek.
She's probably not clicking that button to get the tutorial. Like, she doesn't know enough about HubSpot, like, versus the way that she's used to doing things. And nobody's there to translate that part. My business, I work like this. It is so hard to create an out of the box product that addresses that part, right? Like, you can, even with all this AI translation capabilities, like maybe end of next year, we will have enough, like, all right, no matter what market you're in, we'll be able to translate whatever behavior it's going to be. But that's the part, like, that is such a barrier to entry that it's very hard for a product or an asynchronous activity to open that door, like, for them and say, like, come on in, like, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like taking steps and like, well, what about this thing over here? And you're like, no, it's good. It's good. And it's just over and over and over, right? Here's why it's okay. Okay, you're not ready yet? Okay, let's maybe try this door over here, right? That's the challenge. And that's where a lot of the times where I am thinking that a product can be successful in a short window of time very quickly is understanding the audience that's right next to that one that you're serving. They all have better, faster access. They're all dealing with the same challenges. In this case, we're talking about anybody in the ecosystem trying to help somebody get value out of HubSpot.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where it's a specific challenge for partners, obviously, because it can be a dog eat dog game out there. And like, luckily we're in this ecosystem where it's only theoretically even possible to think that people build products and there's a lot of co-opetition, right? Things like that. And it's just that it's the inbound mentality at the same time, I think. But yeah, that's where I think we got to be careful. Like, it's as much as we know, because that's where, when you're describing it to me, it's like, that's where my mind went. Like, I say out loud to people, like, please, when you come back to this, go through the tutorial. And they don't. They just don't. Right?
Yeah.
So
but you said this was an in-person client, so literally, physically, geographically, you had to go meet them somewhere. I mean, right?
Right. And then today it was
that's what this is
reaffirmed.
intended to physically, literally, not metaphorically help, is it puts the value in the spot they're already at. So if you cloned yourself or had like a Chris easy button right there,
Yes.
right? That's more of the point with
Right.
Sidekick and having it side by side. Even like, think about how dumb this is as a friction point, having to minimize a screen and then click back into something else, or having to swap. Do that 100,000 times and it's irritating. But even at like the most granular level, it being a side by side and having a flashing bulb. This is settings. Oh, there's settings. Okay, yeah, I see that. Like, that's a really, really small user experience thing. It's also really, really, really important for somebody that's a non-adopter or that's a non-starter, right? Like that's what you were mentioning, is like, now they're just now getting to a spot where they're in the product and like using it and getting comfortable and like, dipping toes in, and it's good. Something like this could potentially solve, maybe not for all the product updates and how fast HubSpot's iterating, but just for the comfort factor, right? Of being in the product in unfamiliar territory, right? It's having something familiar there that can kind of guide them through. And that prevents you from having to drive over there. And you know what I mean? There's some other ways. I hadn't thought of that as directly until you said it, but yeah, it could be an interesting fit. And that all goes back to like trying to figure out the value that people are looking for in whatever it is you're offering.
Right.
Who cares? Like, some people may not care that it's like RevPartners. Who cares? I don't care if they're the fastest. I don't care about any of that. I just don't want to feel alone when I'm learning this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that's where, if you can, like, and Chris Walker has been on this angle for, I think, most of this year, at least before his shift, where it's like the product is not center stage. Like, it has to be seen as like something to get in the door, or like it coincides very closely with the service of consulting and coaching. And I think that's what we're seeing is that's where it makes sense. Like, because you're saying, prevent me from going. I want to go. Like,
yeah,
there's more value when I do go. And then when we renew the contract today and it's set and they say, yeah, in person just works better. And it's like, of course, everybody, unless you're born and bred at SAS, like, everybody says, yeah, obviously, like, in person goes better.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think you might be onto something with the clone aspects. But all of this it comes down to like trust and asynchronous trust. Like, when I'm in the moment, I'm in the task, which is where this enablement activity comes in. It's like, if I can't move forward in that moment, like, adoption just falls through the floor. Right. But if you can help me in that moment, adoption goes through the freaking roof. Because now
Yes.
I'm engaged and I want to learn the thing because I have a pain and I need to solve it right now. Right. So at this moment, I'm learning. Right. If you give me an opportunity to learn. Right.
Man, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts there. I know we're close to out time. Adoption is based on proximity. Like, the best way to learn anything is full immersion. So unless you plan to move in with that person, then there will be gaps because you are not physically present in person. It is the best option. I agree.
There will be office hours.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to be there once a week.
Right. So how do you have specifically for this, or I guess it's for whatever else, how do you ensure how do you ensure people are still using when you're not around? Like, that's the behavior change of, first starts with mindset, and it's just getting in there. But the behavior change is really based on proximity. If you go move to Spain for a year, it doesn't matter if you're going to learn Spanish. Like, you don't have a choice.
Right.
If you move into the client's house, they're not going to have as much of a choice, because adoption is really contingent on immersion to an extent, and it's based on proximity. How likely are you to adopt a certain behavior pattern or mindset or opinion if it's not close to you? If you have no proximity to it, not very likely. But when it's in your face or when you seek it out, like, to me, that's the difference. So there's a combination of both. Everything proximity is definitely more helpful. In person is more helpful, but that's not scalable. You can't be at every client's house every day. Maybe you could. If anybody could, Chris, you could. You've done 800 shows. So maybe I misspoke
That's why
there.
the George's clone is a very interesting concept for sure. But I think this is one of those solves. Like, we're going to look to AI ultimately to solve this long-standing problem. This is the kind of stuff that's been in the way of 50%, CRM adoption, and just this whole training aspect that we thought we could just bring into the digital space and everything's going to be fine. And it's not fine, right? And like, I know that, and I think a difference, a nuance in the language is, you said, how do I ensure that they're using it? I can't.
Yeah.
Right? I need to empower their usage, right? And that's going to start with me being there with some office hours so that in the moment of their pain, they can come over. And then the fun thing about HubSpot, the brilliant thing about HubSpot, is that only needs to happen a few times. Now they feel like they can use the product, right? And they have a level of trust, and they start troubleshooting themselves. They get comfortable, and that's what empowerment looks like. And when other people around start doing it too, so yeah, it definitely can't scale it, right? That's why I have no ambition to be, a huge elite partner. But I do think in this moving into this world where everybody can customize their own experience in various ways, we're going to see more and more of the non-scalable ways being successful. And I don't know how. I haven't solved that math problem of people who want to scale or have already scaled, being able to come back from that. And I think we're going to see it's going to be an interesting rest of the year, as that continues to move forward. Because HubSpot clearly is not slowing down on what their AI first, at all costs. So I'm happy to be the guy saying that there will be a voice activated CRM at Inbound.
I'll do a hot take too. I'll say by 2020, what's realistic here?
This is really just already cold.
Well, you don't know what I'm going to say yet. This is really kind of stolen from a clip that I saw. I think it was Gary Vee or somebody, and it just seemed insane. But I went back and thought about it and was like, you know what? Everything else that's happening is pretty insane. But by 2027, people will be paying for in real life experiences that were seen as mundane for eternity until the rise and advent of AI. People walking. Just come hang out. No one does anything in you've seen that in the hunger for that with events and in person, after COVID and getting back, especially you said in SaaS, unless you were just born and raised in SaaS, then, in person is better. My hot take has nothing. It is directly contingent upon AI, fixing everything and making people like WALL-E, the end of WALL-E. Yeah. There will be some insane service that comes out and you'll start seeing these where people are walked or just hung out with Yeah. If evangelism doesn't work out for me, I may have something cooking that's just Rob in person.
Evangelism's about the last bastion of human value in B2B, I think.
Here we go, baby. That is my job. Yeah.
You're on the right track, brother.
Appreciate you.
Well, I hope you have an amazing event next week. Really excited for you to see that come to fruition. Also, the DIY product is very interesting and should be able to help a ton of people that are in this gap where, HubSpot, how to do it and tutorials where they are only, half of the story, if that. So people do need a lot of, in-app support for what they're trying to accomplish with their businesses. So
yeah,
I think you'll see traction there. So
I appreciate your feedback. And yeah, I will let you know how it's going for sure.
Awesome. Well, I guess week after next, maybe we'll recap of Southbound and how it went.
Yes, Friday.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be dead by next Friday. And then the week of the Memorial Day coming up. I think Memorial Day.
Yeah, it's the
weekend.
Friday before Memorial Day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in 2 weeks we will give you the full ROI
There we
from the
go.
event.
Because we will.
You're gonna
'Cause
reach
as
through the
leaders,
screen
we
and
will
punch me in the
already want
face if
it.
I start telling you about ROI from a week out. But
Yeah, no, that's the thing. As leaders, of course, we want to understand the full ROI 1 week after a huge event.
Yeah.
And you know, Rob doesn't mess around. He's going to give it to us.
Get ready.
All right. Until next time, have a great weekend, everybody.
Appreciate you. Bye.